In 1969, a unique assemblage of intact casting molds for the use in the lost wax technique came to light in rock cut tomb 207 at the Qubbet el-Hawa necropolis opposite of Aswan in Egypt. Right after their discovery, the molds were sent to Bonn, where initial studies on the tomb and the objects were undertaken. Only in 2014, an interdisciplinary project funded by the Fritz Thyssen Foundation Cologne started at the University of Bonn to fully examine the finds. The results, published in the volume Materialien einer Gusswerkstatt von der Qubbet el-Hawa, that can be freely downloaded using the link provided, allow to understand Egyptian casting technology in unprecedented detail. The cult chamber of Tomb Qubbet el-Hawa 207 was found occupied by 12 undisturbed late-period burials dating to around 550 to 400 BC. They were successively placed there in 4 rooms divided by dry stone walls. The burials of 6 men and 6 women were equipped with the typical grave goods of this period, such as Tachsoka Osiris figures, canopic chests, mummy masks, amulets, and bead nets. The casting molds and related artifacts, a few of which you see here on the right, came to light next to the youngest burial in room 1. The archival record of the excavation shows that at least some, if not all of them, were deposited in a large ceramic vessel, which was nicknamed treasure pot by the excavators. While such artifacts do not belong to the typical funerary assemblages of the late period, the in most cases complete casting molds constitute the only such find known in the ancient world and are thus of huge importance for the study of casting technology. The most spectacular results during the study of the molds, their technology and composition, were gained with the generous help of Dietmar Meinl of the Federal Agency for Materials Research and Testing in Berlin. Each casting mold was examined with microcomputer tomography, an X-ray imaging technique in 3D with an incredible high resolution. The X-ray data were processed into 3-dimensional renderings which display the radiographic characteristics of every voxel. Inner cavities in the empty and unused casting molds were digitally color-filled so that the intended amulets and figures reappear. The micro-CT data of this unused casting mold meant for a figure of the child god Harpocrates has been visualized in 3 ways. The section to the left provides a view of the inner cavity and the individual layers and elements the mold is composed of. The digital color fill of the inside brings the to-be-cast motif back to life in all its iconographic details. The examination of the micro-CT data also allowed to identify burnt-out organic temper, such as fibers and hairs, which made the layers permeable to the hot air in the moment of casting. The deliberate addition of such temper to the material recipe attests to the know-how of the ancient casters. Furthermore, the customized recipe of the first and second layers can also be appreciated in the thin sections that were made from a fragmented piece. During our initial cooperation with the Egyptian and African Copper Metallurgy project, a first series of experimental casts could be performed. They were entirely based on the data gained from the Qubbet el-Hawa casting molds. The result is the bronze Osiris figure that you can see to the right. In the following, the results of our second experimental study will be presented by my colleague Georges Verly.
Based on archaeological, archaeometrical and first experimental data about the Qubbet el-Hawa casting model, we are able to devise a new experimental protocol. For this protocol to be valid, it has to be in accordance with the archaeological artifact, and the result has to be repeatable many times. This is the reason why more than 50 wax models and castings were made. The main aim of our research is to determine and understand the whole functionality of the molds and their individual layers. We are especially interested in the ceramic layers the molds are made of, and the particular characteristic and function of this layer throughout the whole process and its stage: creation, drying, the waxing of the mold and the final casting. This is a long and continued team effort. In order to further our understanding, we choose to work on a more complicated artifact than a solid cast figure by choosing the image of a hollow cat head. The wax model thus has a casting core. To hold the core in place when the wax has been applied, 3 pins pierce through the wax and the core in 3 different directions. Afterwards, the pouring sprue is applied. No venting channels are made. The first of the 5 layers has to reproduce all surface details of the model wax. It consists of a mixture of fine silt and donkey dung. After 3 months of fermentation, the layer is applied by immersing the model in it. The layer has to dry without developing cracks. Otherwise, the surface of the to-be-cast object will have flaws. After the first layer has dried without cracks, a further manufacturing stage can begin. The second layer is also a mixture of donkey dung and silt. The later burnt-out fibers create a network that will store gases and pressure during the casting of the hot liquid bronze into the mold. It is therefore a layer without direct contact to the wax. A funnel of clay paste has already been created before working on the mold. When dry, it is placed onto the wax pouring sprue. The funnel is then connected with the third layer. The third layer is made of sand and silt. It has a function of stabilizing the mold structure. This reinforcement makes the molds ready for initial heating, dewaxing, and the later casting. It becomes very fragile after casting, making it easier to open the mold. The dry molds are placed in a dewaxing furnace. The wax sprue has been removed to facilitate the running out of the wax, which becomes liquid due to the heat in the furnace. Wood is placed in the fireplace to provide heat for the fire chamber. The floor is pierced with openings. Most of the flames are drawn outwards so as to not damage the molds. By itself, the furnace will slowly rise in temperature, allowing for the following stages. At 60 degrees Celsius, the bulk of the running out wax catches fire and does burn away. At 200 degrees Celsius, the remaining moisture within the clay is removed, and at 600 degrees Celsius, the clay is transformed into a kind of ceramic just barely fired. All these operations are carried out in an oxidizing atmosphere. The melting furnace use is modern. It's not part of the experimental protocol. It was important that the bronze was indeed well molten. After 1 hour of cooling, the mold is opened by small strokes. The layers of the mold behave like those studied in the archaeological specimens. In particular, the second layer becomes completely black due to the combustion gases. This is a proof that this layer works as a structural venting system. Integrating all micro-CT scan and sample data gathered during the initial project phases, the function of each layer are understood, make it possible to propose a chaîne opératoire. It is validated by archaeological data and thus provides the basis for a full appreciation of the bronze casting technology used by the ancient Egyptians. Furthermore, it will help archaeologists to better identify casting mold remains, how to better dig metallurgical workshop traces.